Hey there, everyone. This is Dawn, the head librarian and lead barista here at the VA Cafe Online. And today we're going to be talking about contracts. And I can hear everybody just cringing, like, ooh, contracts. But, you know, picture this. Okay, so you're talking to a client, you've been talking back and forth, everything's going great. They say, hey, you know what? We really like where you're coming from. We think you can, really bond with us, and we'd love to work with you. Why don't you send us your contract? And you say, that's great. You know what? Give me a minute. I'll just go ahead and get that for you, and I'll send that over to you right away. Good. End the Skype call, and you go because you don't have a contract, right? So it's not a big deal, really. You back it up. I've been doing contracts for governments in the United States for about 20 years. I have been in the private sector in manufacturing. I have been in the public sector. I have worked for large cities, the city of Seattle and Washington State. I have worked for small cities. I have been in the state of California, the state of Washington, the state of Arizona. I have a lot of contract experience, especially with governments. Oh my gosh, if you've ever seen one of those contracts, they cover everything under the sun because they want to make sure that they're protected, because they don't want to get a lawsuit, because they have deep pockets. People want to sue them for millions because they figure it's a city, government, county, state, they can get a lot of money. So, but you and I are not governments. We're not large entities. We are, for the most part, solopreneurs. Okay, so it's mainly going to be you and I doing the VA work, or maybe we've got somebody we might subcontract out to help us, but for the most part, we're a solopreneur. So, uh, one misconception, if you think that a contract is going to ensure that you get paid, throw that conception out the door, kick it to the curb. Not going to happen. There's one instance where it might kind of be relied on to get you paid, and that's when you live in the jurisdiction that your client lives in. So in other words, if you enter into a contract with a client and you guys both live in the same town or the same county and they don't pay you for work that was performed and you've got emails back and forth, you can prove that the work was done, that you guys did have a contract, you could file a lawsuit, a civil claim in your local court. But we're VAs, we're mainly location independent, that's not going to happen. So chances are our clients are in other states, other countries, other continents. So realistically, that's not going to happen. So why have a contract? Well, another word for contract is an agreement. That's why we have a contract. It's to put in writing what you and your client have agreed upon as far as who's going to do what and when. Okay, you could. I'm looking around here. You could throw it on this piece of paper. You could write it with a highlighter on this piece of paper, and it would be a contract as long as it contained certain elements. What are those elements? We're going to talk about that. All right. So the elements of a contract, or at least the minimum requirements to enter into a contract, is the date of the contract. You need to put on when you guys decided, when you guys came into agreement. It's really nice to have the date on there too, because if you revise the contract, you can kind of always look and see what is the most recent revision. So the date is helpful to have. Both parties have to be identified on the contract. So you and all your contact information, whether it be your email address, your Skype address, your physical address, a PO box, what have you, the best way to get a hold of you, your phone number, all of that. Same thing for the client. Okay, you have to have that information so that both of you have the means of contacting each other, and you have that all in one spot. It's kind of nice. It helps identify who you are. The deliverables. Who's going to do what for whom? Okay, and for the most part, your client gives you a task, you complete that task, there's your deliverable. Sometimes a little bit later on, it may get more complex, or it may get complex now where your client has to do certain things in order to provide you with information that you need to fulfill the contract and do certain things for them. So, that would kind of get a little bit more into a little more complex, but it's not a huge deal. The payment. So these are going to be the amount and the terms. So are you going to have them pay you 50% upfront and 50% upon completion? Well, upon completion, is that within a day, 3 days, 2 weeks, sometimes a month? A lot of these big companies, it's a net 30. They pay within 30 days, and that's just the way of business. Um, is that how you're going to run your business? Probably as a solopreneur, I would say no, that's not a good idea. But also as a solopreneur, I wouldn't say that you should be doing work and then just getting payment upon completion. Because you are a solopreneur, you don't have, well, you might. You might have a cousin Vinny who's an attorney who can go ahead and send those nasty threatening letters to your clients. Most of us don't have that. So you probably want to get paid up front. If it's maybe a new relationship, it's a large project, there's kind of like, are they going to perform? Are they going to pay me? 50% up front, 50% upon completion. You have to kind of make these decisions for yourself, and it's better to think of them up front and have these thoughts in your head so that you can put them down on paper and it becomes your standard terms and conditions, than to wait until you're kind of put over the hot spot and then have to come up with this out of your head. And then last thing is signatures. So, each of you need to sign the contract. Nowadays, of course, with the electronic world that we live in and the fact that we are doing business around the world, often just receiving an email from that person, from their email address that maybe customarily or historically you've received emails from them giving you direction, and then you receive an email from them saying, hey, yes, I saw the contract dated such and such date that you sent me on such and such date via email. Looks great. Let's go. Let's move forward. So that in itself would be acceptable, at this level. Again, at this level, just starting out. So, and then one of the other things too, it's when you're writing your contract, simple is best, because it's better to start out now simple, because as you grow bigger and bigger and better and more, and maybe have a team, and who knows, when there's a contract dispute, the judge is going to look at not just what was the content, what was the intent behind it. So sometimes you write in the content and you're using these $1,000,000 words and it sounds great. And then you look back, or the judge looks at it and says, well, I see what's written, but it's my interpretation that your intent was this. And so, if you just keep it to these short, sweet little words, basic, don't try to dazzle them with brilliance or baffle them with BS, which is bullshit. Okay. Then you're better off doing it that way. So, it's at this point, you just need those 5 elements: the date, the party identification. I'm looking at my notes here. Deliverables, your payment, and your signatures. Get your money up front, because here's the thing. Contracts are not for dishonest people. So in other words, if you enter into a contract with a client and they don't pay you, even if you take them to court, well, you really can't usually, like I said, unless you get that cousin Vinny who can do that for you, but they're not going to pay you. So, maybe you might want to get your money all up front until you get started, or you have a relationship with them, or just 50% down, 50% upon completion. But the purpose of a contract, when you have basically two honest people who want to work together, who have come to an agreement in good faith, the purpose of the contract is to straighten out any future disagreements or future concerns, discussions about what was actually agreed upon. So you look back on the contract if there's a question and say, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, I see that, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Or, oh yeah, remember seeing the contract, I said that we were going to do this. Oh, okay, yeah. So a contract is basically for an honest person. It's not for dishonest people. So it's basically just to make sure that what you agreed upon is put in writing. It's helpful as a reminder to go back. And especially if you're working in a long-term relationship, say that your deliverables is to provide community management for one of their groups. and it's $500, $600 a month, whatever it's going to be. But it's a automatically renewing contract. It basically means it goes kind of month to month to month, and you bill them every month. Well, 6, 7 months into the contract, something comes up. You can look back on that contract and see what was agreed upon, and so that's helpful there. Um, if you're working with a client and you just kind of give them a simple contract, and we have a simple contract down below. It's really basic, very easy. And like I said, anything is a contract. You can write on a piece of paper, scribble it out. It's a contract, as long as it contains those elements. But if the client wants to make all kinds of changes to your contract, you might want to consider walking away, because if they're going to be making all kinds of changes to a very simple contract, which the one I'm going to give you is kind of a standard, um, I don't know that I would want to work with them, just because I'm thinking everything I do, they're going to be wanting to tweak it and change it, and it's just going to it's going to be hard. It really, I think it's going to be hard if you're having that kind of issue right at the front. So, um, you know, yeah, hey, but it might be your first client. Go with it until you get somebody better that you can replace them with. Who knows? Or maybe they're just that way. They're fussy, and then once you get into the relationship, it's fine. But it's just something to think about, because we want to keep it simple. Again, we're solopreneurs. Don't want to go crazy. Can't really go crazy right now. This is not a huge deal. So, contracts. Don't be intimidated. Have your date, the party information, your deliverables, your terms, your signatures, or an email, and you're good to go. So don't be afraid of those. For more information on this and some other topics, click down below. We'll take you over to the VA Cafe Online. Also, don't forget your downloadable. Okay, you're going to get a little workbook about what we discussed here, keep it in writing, and you'll also get a sample contract that'll help you out. So, again, thanks for watching. This is Dawn, Head Librarian and Lead Barista at the VA Cafe Online.